Jeff Dickerson, ESPN 1000, ESPN NFL Nation covers the Bears. Are the Bears at 12-4 for real, or are they one of these surprise teams like the Rams of last year that have a great season out of the blue and go one and done? Jeff Dickerson, ESPN 1000, NFL Nation here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Welcome back, Jeff. So, Bears for real or a surprise?
You know, it's a surprise, Mike, that they're this point right now in year one with Matt Nagy. That was not the expectations for anyone in Chicago. This looked like maybe a 7-8, maybe a 9-win team, and then they got Khalil Mack. And then the offense worked better than expected, sooner than expected. So I think they are for real. And the reason I say that is if you just look at the roster, this wasn't a roster put together by a bunch of veterans near the end. I mean, this is a really young team. You know, they got 4 All-Pros. They got 5 Pro Bowlers. And I think out of all those players, Khalil Mack is the oldest. You know, Tariq Cohen is young. Eddie Jackson's in his second year. You know, Trubisky is in his second year. Kyle Fuller is still a really young player despite being on his second contract with Chicago. So I think they're for real, and I didn't get the sense this week that they're going to be overwhelmed by the playoff atmosphere because so many of them, unlike the Eagles, will be playing in their first playoff game on Sunday. So we'll see what happens, but I do think they're for real, and because they're so young, I think this could be the start of something here in Chicago. This could actually turn into a perennial playoff team, which the Bears haven't seen since the Mike Ditka days, believe it or not.
Well, I would agree that this team seems like they're here to stay. This game, well, let me ask you this, Jeff. Why Philly? Why, with people asking this week, hey, why not just play the Vikings? Lose to the Vikings, play them again the following week. Was the Eagles the preferred opponent, or did not matter?
Did not matter. No, they didn't look at it like that. You know, they just pasted the Vikings. And I think they got excited because the crowd was so, just tortured last week inside US Bank Stadium. I think there was something to be said about really burying a division team, a team that was the favorites to win the North this year before the season started. So I don't think it was a preference of we want to play the Eagles. I would say of the 3 teams they could have played, they certainly would have wanted to play the Vikings. I mean, the Vikings are not good this year. The Eagles and I think the Seahawks are certainly, present different challenges for the Bears. But no, definitely they were not circling that and saying, oh, we want to win, so knock the Vikings out so we play the Eagles. It wasn't that way by any means.
Jeff Dickerson, ESPN, covers the Chicago Bears. Last year, Philly played Minnesota. They had the number 1 defense. Now, statistically speaking, the Viking defense was actually better than this Bear defense. And, you know, the Eagles went on to win that game rather handily. They both had quarterbacks that people question. Is it fair to question Trubisky? Or is that, hey, maybe people don't see enough of this guy, that he has jumped up to a level that he is, you know, not an Achilles heel for this team anymore?
Oh, it's completely fair to question Trubisky. It was just a month ago that he had that game against the Rams in prime time where he threw in 3 interceptions. And, the Bears won that game rather easily. And if Trubisky wouldn't have turned the ball over so much, it's a blowout. No, I think Trubisky, that move is always going to be scrutinized here in Chicago because of the players that the Bears passed up. He's not Patrick Mahomes. I don't think he's Deshaun Watson. But he's good enough to get them to 12-4. And it would be unfair to say that he hasn't had some memorable performances this year. He only passed for 7 touchdowns as a rookie. Isn't that horrible in 12 starts?
Yeah.
It says a lot about – it also speaks to the offense, the John Fox era, which was lousy. No skill position guys of note, really, besides Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen. But, his numbers are way up. He's a 95, 96 passer rating guy, 24 touchdowns, well over 3,000 yards passing. So he's definitely had a good year, but there is the concern that he will have a game where he self-destructs and turns the ball over too much, and that's how a team with a great defense loses, as you and I both know. So you can absolutely question him, but if he goes on a big run this postseason, I think there will be a lot of few doubters out there with Trubisky, but until that happens, those people are going to remain, obviously.
Jeff, Philly went years. They were the team that always came up short. The Bears kind of have that feeling for a while, since 85 now. The last time they've been in the playoffs was 12. It's been a long time. Does it feel more like last year we talked about the Rams? They came out of nowhere. They had this great season. They got a home game and laid an egg in the playoffs. Do the Bears – does it seem like that's the way this story is destined to go, or is there a happier ending? Like if the Bears won this game and made it around, that's probably a great, that's an unprecedented season that no one was expecting. But does it have the feeling that this thing is going to like the fun team that's ready to keep going? Does it have that feel around it, or does it feel more like they made it and the one and done?
Yeah, it is a fun team, believe it or not. And I've covered non-fun teams. A lot of them, and this team is way different. I don't get that sense that people are resigned to the fact that it's going to be one and done. I mean, look, it could absolutely happen, no question about it. The Eagles could win on Sunday, sure, but I think that their expectations are higher. I think they want to go to Los Angeles and rematch with the Rams. I think there'll be a lot of confidence there. I don't think they go to New Orleans and win in the championship game. I don't think anyone goes to New Orleans and wins. But I don't get the sense that just getting there was good enough and the journey is going to be over.
Yeah.
I mean that's not how that hasn't been the vibe around the facility this week. They're actually pretty loose, believe it or not. I wasn't sure what to expect because I haven't covered a playoff game in 8 years with the Bears, but they're pretty loose. They're pretty confident, and I think there's a small part of them. Now, that game last year in Philadelphia, I mean, that was like a 3-hour celebration of Eagles football. I mean, the guys sitting in front of the press box were so drunk by, like, the first quarter. And they were so happy because the fans were just celebrating because the Eagles just pasted the Bears last year. I don't want to say it's a revenge thing, but the guys that were on that field remember that.
31-3, yep.
Now the Bears are the fun team. Now the Bears are doing all the dancing and the celebrating. So it would be interesting if it went a little bit full circle like that.
Eddie Jackson, game time decision. If he's not in, what's that mean?
Yeah, that's a big loss. We staked out Eddie Jackson for over 30 minutes today. He wouldn't come out the training room, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him, unfortunately. He was limited today. He's questionable. I think the expectation is he's going to play. How well remains to be seen. If he doesn't go, they'll start Deion Bush, and that's a problem. Because the Bears have not given up any deep shots downfield. And like I do, that's what the Eagles will love to do with Alshon and Foles on Sunday. But the Bears don't give up those plays. Now, if Eddie Jackson is not in there, maybe they are a little more susceptible to that. So, yeah, he's a game-time decision. But, again, being limited the last 2 days, I'm sure they're very hopeful that he suits up this weekend and is active and starts.
Is Nick Foles a story in Chicago?
Not really. We had a lot more fun with the Doug Peterson, Matt Nagy connection story this week in Chicago. That's the fun story. Not a whole lot on Foles.
Are you kidding me? People want Wentz traded.
Yeah, I know. Listen, believe me, when I got to compete with my guy Tim McManus for those stories on ESPN.com, Foles is always getting pushed up higher than my Trubisky story. So I know there's a lot of interest in Foles out there. The Bears have lots of respect. Look, the Bears go into this thing. They haven't said one dumb thing all week. I don't think either side has. I know Alshon. Alshon's a little different. I didn't take that whole, I only worked in Chicago thing as an insult. That is what it is. I think the Bears have been very careful about not saying anything dumb because they do know the Eagles are good. And Foles is a remarkable story of what he's done now, maybe in the second postseason here for the Eagles. So he's not. The Peterson-Nagy thing, I think, as far as the crossover, and then the Long brothers playing against each other.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be a fight at some point because that's what Kyle Long does. He likes to fight. Probably his brother. That's gotten a little more play this week in Chicago than Bulls.
This Sunday, we'll have it right here on 97.3 ESPN. The countdown to kickoff starts at 1 o'clock. Maryland Mike, 4:40 Eagles. And that's 3:40 Central Time for Jeff out there. 4:40 right here on 97.3. I don't want you to be late for the game, because you listen to my.
That would be bad. That would be bad.
You listen to my East Coast time promotion. Jeff Dickerson, ESPN Chicago. Jeff, thank you.
My pleasure. Anytime. Enjoy the game.